Nairobi Northeast branch and all the leadership actually for having me here. As I have been introduced, I am working at a center called the National Productivity and Competitiveness Center. As you can see written in short form, NPCC, on the screen that I am sharing. I wanted to really appreciate all the participants who have taken time to be with us here. I want to say that IHRM is a family, and I'm glad to be a member of IHRM. I became a member in 2014, and this far I am glad that I chose that direction. It has been a big pillar in my life. I think though I am not practicing HR, I have always believed that HR professionals are actually like the center bolt of a vehicle that holds the vehicle in its place. When you find a vehicle that does not have a center bolt, it actually goes like it is bedding on one side. So HR professionals are very key in any organization. So our department is in the Ministry of Labor, as has been introduced, and we are mandated to spearhead productivity management in both public and private sectors. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be looking at this very important topic on productivity measurement for HR professionals. The session that we are going to have is going to cover a few things, and I want to just say that this is basically an overview. Productivity measurement is such a wide subject. So we are going to have just an overview of what productivity measurement is. We are going to look at some of the approaches that are used, especially in the private sector to measure productivity. We are going to look at some of the methods that we can adopt as organizations to measure productivity. And we are also going to be looking at some of what is the productivity indices, development of productivity indices, and metrics that are maybe related to the HR as a profession. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to just start my presentation with a quote that was stated by a management consultant and educator. He's also another called Peter Drucker. And this man, being in the management, said that if you can't measure it, you can't control it. And if you can't control it, you can't improve it. And so I want to submit to us that what we cannot measure, we cannot control. And what we cannot control, then we can't improve. And that is why I believe it is very important to undertake measurement of whatever activity we are engaging in, so that we can have full control of it, and then we are able to improve. And so, ladies and gentlemen, coming now to what is productivity measurement. It is a deliberate assessment of the efficiency and efficacy levels of our employees, the ones that we have in our organizations, our programs, whether the programs are running well, our processes, and the general organization. So I want us to underline the word deliberate. So it means it is something that organizations must purpose to do, to undertake, because without it, then we can never improve of the productivity of our organization. I want to believe that earlier on in a presentation I had made when there was IHRM KSG conference, I did manage to define what productivity is. For the sake of maybe those who did not participate in that conference, productivity technically defined is the relationship, or it's a ratio, it's a measure of output against the input. So we say productivity is equal to output over the input. So when we are talking about productivity measurement, we are basically talking about how we need to measure our output or what we generate as organizations. If we are a service organization, the value of the services that we produce against the costs of all the inputs that are at our disposal. And so productivity measurement actually takes the center stage. It is the first step towards improving our productivity. And I also remember that in that conference, I talked about the productivity management framework, and it is positioned, productivity measurement is positioned at the beginning of this 4-phase cycle. For the sake of those, once again, who did not attend, I wanted to bring to us the framework. We look at productivity measurement, the big picture, so that we see where does productivity measurement lie. Today, we are just doing a sensitization. So we are there at the top there, creating awareness of productivity management. So this productivity management framework has 4 phases, which starts with the productivity measurement, and then we go to productivity analysis, then we go to productivity planning, and then you can see productivity improvement at the end there. And so when we are doing productivity improvement, it means it is at the tail end of the productivity management framework. So you can see the position, the prime and the preference it has been given. Productivity measurement, it is the beginning, it is the start of productivity management. Because after that, so productivity measurement actually involves collection of the data and to establish our productivity levels. You collect data in organizations. And out of experience, we have realized that the private sector is very good in documenting or keeping data, collecting their data and keeping it. But also we have an experience of organizations that do not keep the right data that can help them, determine their productivity levels. Then you go to productivity analysis. This is where you want to look at the root cause analysis. You want to establish the opportunities for improvement. You want to determine, to know why. You're asking yourself, why is the situation like this? And this is where we recommend organizations to use methods like the Ishikawa, the 5 whys, and so many other approaches they can use to undertake productivity analysis before they come to development of countermeasures in the planning stage or the planning phase of the productivity management framework. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted us to just see that framework, the big picture of what we need to embrace as organizations when we are undertaking productivity measurement. So I want to just say that it is very important. We have all the reasons to desire as organizations to undertake productivity measurement, because we need to assess our productivity and our performance trends. How is our organization progressing? From last year, from the other year, we are able to determine the trend in as far as the performance and productivity of our organization is concerned, we need the data we collect and analyze is very helpful for us as an organization to enable us identify the potential obstacles that are likely to come across or are hindering us from achieving our objectives, our goals, our strategies as an organization. It is very important for us to measure productivity because it is a way of ensuring that the people who are entrusted with the resources are held accountable. When you measure, you can see the utilization of these resources. You can hold people accountable, all the stakeholders from the suppliers, the entire along the value chain. You can be able to hold people accountable. It is also important, it helps us to allocate resources appropriately. Now you can determine which departments do we need to share, how do we share our resources across departments in the organizations. Productivity measurement helps us it's a source of feedback. We get feedback out of the figures we get on our policy initiatives. And by and large, ladies and gentlemen, productivity measurement is very crucial. It enables us to contain production and operational costs. So these are some of the reasons. There could be very many other reasons. I've just picked a few. If we go to the public service, we will have many others, like we needed to talk about the way the resources are used, knowing that the public sector is actually sustained through the taxes that are paid by people. Transparency, accountability, policy, trade, technology. So there are so many reasons why we need to measure our productivity. So these are just a few, and maybe if we had time, we'll talk about more. Just as a reminder, I know HR professionals are very keen on organizational performance. And just for the sake of those of us who did not attend, the organizational performance, I decided to differentiate between organizational performance and organizational productivity. And now looking at organizational performance, the latter one, this comprises the actual output or results of an organization as measured against its intended outputs or goals and objectives. And that's why we talk about the key performance indicators. That's why we look at our organizational goals, cascaded maybe from our strategic plan. And then we have the KPIs, we have the PC that actually even outlines how the individual employees are supposed to perform. And then at the end of the day, at the end of every financial year, we are doing the performance appraisal system. So that's organizational performance. Because we know performance is just the ability to accomplish a task by somebody or by an employee or by an organization. So organizational performance, our actual outputs measured against the intended outputs. But look at the organizational productivity, the one I've started with up there. It is the capacity of an organization. I can see many of us are maybe heads of organizations, institutions, or even business to produce desired results with a minimum expenditure of energy, of time, of money, or personnel, or even the raw materials that we utilize in the organizations. Because remember, productivity is about our output over the input. So when I am talking, I always imagine, if I'm told to talk about the formula of performance, I would talk about the output over the input, over the targets. And then the productivity is output over the input. So somewhere they meet. productivity and performance meet at the point of output. But in productivity, we are really very keen on how the resources that we have at our organizations are being utilized to produce our goods and our services. So that is just a reminder. So now let me go to these measurement, the approaches to measure productivity, the levels of productivity measurement. No, the approaches. That's where I am first. The approaches, we have 3 main approaches of measuring productivity that we can use in our organizations. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, you can hear me. Hello?
Yes, we can, Jane.
Okay, good. You know, sometimes you can lose people. Okay, so the approaches, we have 3 main ones. The one that is mainly used by many countries is single factor productivity measurement. Some others, writers will call it partial or factorial productivity measurement, where the outputs or what you produce as goods, your total output is just divided by one input. And in most cases, this one input is normally the labor input. Just like in our countries, when we talk about Kenya's level of productivity, or Sweden or other countries, it's normally labor productivity, which is a single factor productivity. And so the GDP of our country, which is the total wealth of our country, is divided by the labor input, and so we get the labor productivity. So the single factor productivity in our organizations, we can take our total output and divide that with one input resource. Then we can also decide to take the multi-factor productivity measurement approach, which is also called the total factor productivity. And this is where we can take our total output and we divide that with the 2 main inputs. For many organizations, the labor input and the capital input tend to take the center stage. And so you find they combine the 2 inputs, input 1 maybe being labor and input 2 being capital. And then they combine the 2 and then they use that to define the total output. That is a multi-factor approach, which may give a more clearer picture of the productivity of our organizations. However, we can also decide to go the total productivity and not total factor. I want you to see the difference. There is total factor, which combines just 2 input factors, but the total productivity is that when you take your total output and then you take all your inputs, you combine them, and what they bring now, you divide your total output with the total inputs, total output with the total input. So those are the 3 main approaches that organizations can take. The single factor productivity measurement, the multi-factor productivity measurement, or even the total productivity measurement approach. That having been said, productivity can be measured at the national level. It can be measured at the industry level, but that's the macro. The meso level is the sectoral level. Like you can talk about the education sector, you can talk about the health sector. That's the sectoral level. But I believe for us in this that we are in now, we are actually talking about the micro level or at the organizational level. Maybe not even at the departmental level, but it can also be measured at the departmental level in an organization. It is also possible to determine the productivity of a single employee, that is the individual employee. So those are the levels of productivity measurement, 5 of them: macro, meso, micro, departmental, and individual level. So it is upon the HRs in any organization to determine which direction do they want to take. But of course, I know it is not macro and meso level, but they can do it. If we were in a physical meeting, we would have an interaction of what is the current status of productivity measurement in our organization. But because it is now a Zoom meeting, we will not go that direction, but maybe you think about it. Have you been able to measure productivity in your organization? And to what degree have you done it? So that's a question that we need to be interacting with even as we continue, and even as we try to think about the questions that we can ask at the end of this presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about now the methodology of productivity measurement, or the methods that we can use. For you organizations that the chairperson of this National Institute branch Madam Dave had informed me that I am dealing with the private sector this time round, and so I believe I'm talking to HRs who are leading organizations that are profit-oriented, that you're very keen on making profits for your organizations. And so this is the method that we are recommending for commercial enterprises, those that are very keen on making profits. So the methodologies, we are having this diagram here. There is the output-based methodologies. There is the behavioral methodologies. You can see them there, that normally cannot give us an index, but they are good, which we can deal with the issues of absenteeism. We can deal with the issues of timeliness. We can deal with the customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and so many other things that address the behavioral, the behavior of our employees and even our customers, and whether they are satisfied or not. But for us, what we are mainly recommending, we have the output-based methodologies. On the extreme end, we have the physical measurement. Now, this one, it's very easy to measure, as you can see, where you can say how many cartons were produced by the employees, that is the units, the physical units, how many number of tins or kilograms per hour, how many units were done per hour, how many tons were produced per hour, and so on. It is physical measurement, very easy to measure like that. Like when we are dealing with the textile, we are able to ask how many garments were made by the employees within the 8 hours, shift. So those are the physical measurements, which are very easy to determine in organizations that deal with the production of goods. However, we are now taking the next organizations to the next step of getting the monetary measurement of their productivity. And here is where we are taking the added value approach against the total output. And so we are able to ask ourselves, the workers we have, the employees we have in our organizations, how much value are they adding? The assets, the capital that we have in our organizations in terms of machines, in terms of tools, equipment, and many others, the fixed assets, how much value are they generating for our organizations? What is the added value variable cost? So we are recommending organizations to take the added value approach more. actually. The total output, I am going to be talking about that in a while, but the method that we are really recommending is the monetary measurement for commercial enterprises. So the value added concept, I want us to talk about this. What is this added value? I know that maybe you know, but we are just reminding ourselves. I don't want to deal with the first one. Okay, the value addition, that's why organizations do value additions. That's what is being implied in the first one. But what I'm interested in is the wealth that the company has been able to create by its own, and it's on its own, and its employees' efforts. So the financial value that is newly created by the internal activities of an enterprise. That is, when we are talking about the added value, in measuring productivity, we are asking ourselves, it is the wealth that is generated by the organization using its employees. Why are we just saying using its employees, its internal activities? Because we know there are organizations, even in the public service, that are maybe funded, they get donations. And so we will not, when we are calculating the added value, we will not factor in what comes from outside. It is the wealth that is created by the internal activities of the enterprise. So the added value concept is very key for commercial enterprises, and it's something that all the organizations should be able to understand. And we calculate the added value looking at this diagram. So again, so we have our total output or what we generate, the value of maybe the goods and the services that we generate in our organizations. And it is a combination of two things. It's a combination of the bought-in materials and services, that is the beams, or the inputs that we talked about, and then the added value. And the added value, so the beams and the added value make up the total output. But it is from the added value that you do the wealth distribution. So after you create the wealth, then you generate. So this value, added value generate, is what you will use to pay for your labor, the employees, or to factor in the provision, to pay the interest if you took any loan, to pay your taxes to the KRA, and with all that, then you have your profit. So it is therefore important, if you look at this part of the added value, the more this section is expanded, the better for organization. So the tasks that organizations have actually is to reduce these beams, the percentage of beams, and increase the percentage of the added value, because that's what will enable us, after we meet all of these costs, then the profit will actually expand for us as organizations. So ladies and gentlemen, that is how we calculate the added value. And I just wanted us to look at the total output in our financial statements. We are able to get the total output. And it is the financial officers can be able to get this, the net sales plus the closing stock. All of this data is available within the financial statements. What it comprises, when we are talking about the total output, what are we talking about? The beams, it refers to all the materials and services that are bought by a company. That's the materials consumed plus the supplies, consumables, printing, lubricants, everything that you are using. Those are the beams. The labor costs refers to the wages and salaries, including the commissions, bonuses, and benefits, the remunerations paid to working directors, partners, and any benefit even paid in kind by the employer. So that was just the defining. So when I go back there, when we are talking about the total output, what are we talking about here? What is the beam and what's the labor cost? Because the labor cost, we know in organizations, it constitutes a very big percentage of all the costs that we have as organizations. So that is why I decided when we just define these terms. And when we are calculating the added value, we can use the subtraction method where we say added value is equal to all outputs minus the bins, as the diagram actually there portrays, or we can use the wealthy distribution approach. Let me take you back there so that you can see. This is the subtraction, and this is the addition. So wealthy generation against wealthy distribution. So here you add all of them, and here you subtract this and that. So that is how to calculate, but the two add to the same. The added value gotten through subtraction method is actually the same as added value gotten through the addition method. So the labor cost plus the depreciation plus taxes plus interest. So that is that. This is just an example of a single factor productivity, and this is the labor productivity, which is very key in organizations because HR, you are dealing with lots of labor. You are the people who are dealing with the employees, and so it is of your interest to get labor productivity and to get the labor productivity index for your organization. You needed to know whether your employees are adding value to your organization. So some of the indices that you can calculate for your organization is the total output per employee. So you get where you get the total output divided by the number of employees. That will give you the size of the output generated by each employee of the enterprise. And you can also calculate secondly the added value per employee. So you have the value of your output. This could be in physical, but this now you quantify in terms of money, the added value per employee. And this will reflect the amount of wealth generated by the company relative to the number of employees that it has. So, ladies and gentlemen, as HRs, you needed to really calculate labor productivity using the value added method. So you get the added value per labor cost. And remember what we have said, labor cost. So the value of all your outputs, be they services or goods, you divide by the entire labor cost. That will give you the labor productivity for your organization. And this will measure how much added value is produced by each unit of labor cost. So that you know if I'm using 40,000 shillings to pay my employees, what is that generating for our organization? So labor productivity. It is very key for HRs to do that because they are their devisers even for the rest of the managers. And then you are able to calculate the labor productivity index. Remember, labor productivity index, when you see the word index, it compares two periods. Two periods is against a base year. So let me take you there. When you want to calculate labor productivity index, you first calculate the output index. The output index is the value. For example, we can say the value, the added value in 2020. And then we have the added value in a base year, maybe 2019. You multiply that by 100. So you get the output index. Then the input index is the labor input in 2020, and then the labor input against the base year of 2019 times 100. So once you are able to get the output index, and then you get the input index, then you are ready now to calculate your labor productivity index. You just define the labor output index and the labor input index. You get a figure. And that figure is the labor productivity index. And so you will now be able to track, to say 2019, which now forms our base year, we were at 0.5. 2020, Maybe we came to 0.6 and so on. So you are able to track, you are able to tell whether your labor productivity or your labor input is actually becoming more productive or less productive as you track your indices, as you look at the indices and the way they are changing against one year against the other. So ladies and gentlemen, I just want to repeat here that this is of very great interest to the HRs. They are the people who can spearhead the calculation of labor productivity and labor productivity index because they are manning the most important resource in an organization. Then they can also spearhead, HRs can also spearhead the calculation of the capital productivity, still using the added value approach because you are a commercial enterprises, you would want to know how much wealth is generated by the fixed assets that you have. Maybe some of our organizations are capital intensive, they have huge machines, they have very many tools, equipment, computers, all the machines that you're using to generate your output. And then you get your added value against the total value of your fixed assets. Of course, you need to factor in depreciation, except for the buildings, you have that, and you calculate the added value. Then you can get the total output per fixed asset. This is where you go physical, you are not quantifying. And then the fixed asset by employees, you wanted to know how much fixed assets can each employee allocated to. So these are some other indices that are very key to the HR professionals, the added value per fixed asset, the total output per fixed asset, and the fixed asset per employee. That is in the single factor. These are single factor productivity measurement, and which I recommend for now. If you are not a commercial enterprise, we are recommending other methods, not the value added. Like now, those that are like in the public service, we are not using the value added approach. So the value added approach is for commercial agencies, for profit-oriented enterprises like yours. But for non-commercial and ministries, departments, and other agencies, we actually using the objective matrix or the matrix method or OMAX, and then we have the overall labor efficiency and effectiveness, OLE, which I am not going to talk about today because I believe I'm dealing with the people who are profit-oriented. But these are methods that we are also utilizing in other organizations that are not commercial. So ladies and gentlemen, as I come to the end of my presentation, I wanted to talk about the metrics because I have talked about the indices. Remember in the outline, I talked about the productivity indices and the metrics for HR professionals. And we have seen, especially the labor productivity indices, that are about 4 of them are very key. Now, the metrics that we are talking about, a metric is just a measure that has meaning. It's a standard of measurement, by which we can determine the efficiency, we can determine the effectiveness, we can determine the capacity, the performance, the profitability of a process, the quality of the goods that we are producing. We can be able to track, to trace this using metrics. So a metric is a message. I want us to understand that is meant to spur an action towards performance and productivity improvement. So if any metrics is not spurring an action, if it is not carrying a good message, a message with a meaning, then it is not worthy to be called a metrics. So good metrics helps us as managers in the HR department to focus on the right things. We are able to ask the questions about what is important in our businesses. We are able to inform others. We are able to track how we are performing the productivity of our organization on a daily basis. So our metric is a measure that has meaning. And I want to differentiate, slightly. There is a thin line between metrics and key performance indicators that we have been used to so much as HRs. From where I sit, I believe that metrics, they are quantitative and qualitative measures for assessing and tracking performance and productivity. So like we talk about the cycle times, we talk about the lead times, we talk about the activity ratio, we talk about the yield ratio, maybe what is the CNA, the complete and accurate, the downtime, the people downtime, the machine downtime, the takt time. We are talking about things that we can use to assess. To assess is to monitor. But KPIs, they are used to evaluate. Normally at the end, we are evaluating the success of an organization, employees. So the targets for new customers every month, researches per year, all the things that we can do, so many products per year. So those are the KPIs. So I want just to understand, ladies and gentlemen, from where I sit is like we talk about monitoring and evaluation. For metrics, they are more of monitoring tools. You use them to monitor, but KPIs, you use them to evaluate. So monitoring and evaluation. So KPIs are for evaluation. They come at the end of a set period. But metrics are on a daily basis. They're the ones that help you track how are we doing, how are we performing on a daily basis. And so human resource managers, they needed to be able to determine the key metrics that they needed to track on a daily basis, and also the KPIs. And I am saying there at the bottom that both of them are very useful in productivity improvement. So you are not going to negate any. So if you negate metrics and you are very keen on KPIs, you will not be able to collect things as they go on. You will only realize at the end of a certain period that things did not go on very well. So I would really recommend that organizations looking at their businesses, their day-to-day businesses, their metrics that are important, and each department has its metrics which may not be necessarily the same with another department in an organization. So they can be developed even at departmental level, even at section level, at unit level. KPIs are more general and they are used for evaluating. I just give an example, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know whether there is anybody here in the hotel industry. Some of the metrics that maybe they can track. For example, the ADR, that's the average daily rate, the room revenue, the number of rooms, the revenue per available room, that's RevPAR, arrows. Okay, this is just an example which may not mean much to us, just to give us a picture of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the metrics, is at least the KPIs. So there is in a hotel industry, if there is somebody who is doing that, then they can have some of the metrics, and the textile, they do have theirs and so on that we can track. So once again, if you are in a physical meeting, this is what we will be doing. Which metrics have you been tracking in your organization? You need to be asking yourself that question as we go on. And I wanted to suggest, ladies and gentlemen, that we can use these categories as examples, as guidelines, not examples, as guidelines for us to develop key metrics, some metrics for our organization. So we would look at the metrics that are addressing efficiency, metrics that are addressing effectiveness, metrics that are addressing capacity, metrics that are addressing productivity, quality, profitability, and the return on investment. So these metrics, they would be good, very, very helpful. As HRs, they can help us track. I hope at the end, when I finish, somebody will give us some of the metrics that you actually track in your organization. And I think that is something you can use. You see the chart, you can identify some 5 metrics, which are very crucial to HR professionals, even as I come to the end of this. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to really thank you very much for listening to me. I want to believe that I have communicated something, but to end, I want to talk about this, that was to echo these words of Stephen Pugh, a consultant in data analytics and business intelligence consultant. He's a consultant on data analytics. He said, numbers have an important story to tell. They rely on us to give them a clear and convincing voice. So once we measure, once we get the data, we analyze, we ask questions, we get the root cause analysis, then we give a story to that, to the numbers that we get, and we give them a voice. We get the metrics and we track. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to really thank you for listening to me, and may God really bless you. I am ready to answer a question that will be put, and I hope somebody will be able to respond to that question on some of the metrics that maybe you can share with us in your organization, the metrics that you have been tracking. Over to you, coordinator. Thank you so much.
Wow. I think for now, if you are... Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good. Wow. I think if you are somewhere with everyone would be on his feet, applauding for that opening or eye-opening and sharpening us.
Thank you.
I think we'll be very quick on this one. We are the Q&A. So for this one, we can just simply chat there, or if you have something to say, just raise your hand. We'll give at least five people for the interactive. But meanwhile, there's one question asked by Pacifisa. With the total productivity approach, what are some of the examples of the other inputs aside from labor and capital?
Okay.
Can take on that?
Yes, let me respond. Let me put on my video again. The other inputs, we have 3 main. We talk about the labor inputs, the capital inputs, and the intermediate inputs. The intermediate inputs are all those inputs that are used in the process of production. For example, we talk about water, electricity, stationery, fabricating wires, and anything else that you use in the process of production. So when in organizations, we are able to calculate the intermediate inputs productivity. We can take it as a single factor, that's the intermediate inputs productivity, or we can take now the labor productivity or the capital productivity. They are basically 3 main categories. Thank you. I hope I've answered that. Over to you.
Yes, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, my hand.
Raphael?
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Raphael. I'm Olala Raphael, and I'm so much happy to have participated in this. To Sister Jane Maina, thank you so much. I'm so happy. Actually, right as we are speaking, I'm in Germany specifically to study that productivity indices in the BMW, Volkswagen farm, and I really feel attached to the presentations that you brought. So in mine was a congratulatory message of the good presentation. Secondly, I was asking, has the institution brought or developed at least productivity indices per industry that trade unions can use to negotiate? Trade unions can use to negotiate with the companies. That is my question. Is there a specific one that we can rely on per industry, like in petroleum industry, retail industry, as the example you have given, that trade unions can use and rally on to negotiate CBS? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bwana Raphael, for that question. It's a good one. I wanted to let us know that as a center, we have developed the National Productivity Measurement Framework, and out of that now we have the national indices, we have the sectoral indices in all the 17 sectors. We are using the ISIC approach that's used by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and we have now the sectoral indices. The framework is ready. It has been validated. We are waiting for the launch, and plans are actually at an advanced stage to launch that national productivity measurement framework. And we developed it together with the key stakeholders. COTU was there. Kenya Association of Manufacturers was there. We also had the FKE, we had the nationals, the NSSF, and many other key stakeholders in the country. And so the indices are valid, and so they will be released to the market very soon. You can use the industry or the organizational productivity measurement to compare with the industry indices, because now we cannot develop for organizations in that framework. We have only developed at the sectoral level, the meso level, and the micro and the macro level. The micro level, we work with organizations one-on-one so that we are able to develop their indices, their productivity indices, and we do that upon request. And organizations score us, and we have done it for several organizations already that are mainly commercial. For the public service, we are using the OLE, as I have said earlier on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lydia Masharia is asking a great presentation here. There. Is it possible to get the content handouts? I love to learn more about this. Yes, I think Madam will be sharing as well. We also be sharing in our platforms. And as well, if you drop in your email, we can do that for you. Indeed, good metrics helps the managers to focus on the right things and ask better questions. That is why you can hear everybody asking a good question. Any two questions or comments? Yes, Lydia, you got your email. We'll do that. Sharon will do that. Pamela. Anyone else? Burning question? No questions. I'd say silence is everyone is good. Yes, I'll now share the mantle to my co-host. She winds up, then we'll have our chairperson to say something, and then from there I'll give a vote of thanks so that we can finalize on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mwangi, for this opportunity, to the chairperson and everybody on this platform. Thank you for having us, Ms. Jane. This was a brilliant session. We learned more and more. I guess it was an eye-opener to me and my colleague. Thank you so much for that. For more of our services, please do visit our website, www.aminikamanpower.com. Thank you so much. I'll hand it over to Ms.
Thank you very
Edith.
much, everyone, and our facilitator. We confirm that for sure, it's not just metrics and KPIs. We have got an opportunity and to learn even more, and especially to learn from one another. And even as we continue with the branch, we shall keep on ensuring that we channel or enhance on areas that are going to add value to us. Jane, what you've taken us through, it is actually elevating us to the next level, not just being HR, it is also for us to go to the next level. Thank you very much, my team, for being there for us as a branch, and also for your participation. And we don't take that for granted, as I started and I said, and how I pray that we shall continue learning together as a team. Thank you very much. I'll request Saverio to pray, to close for us with a word of prayer. Thank you and bye-bye.
Maybe Chair, before
for us.
hello, Chair.
Thank you. And before that, Madam Jane, a closing remarks.
Madam Edith. Hello. Hello.
Yes.
I was just saying that if any organization would wish to measure the organization, I am sure Madam Edith has my contact, and it was also there in the slides, in the first slide. Thank you.
Shall we believe and pray? Dear loving Master, we come before thy presence this afternoon. Thank you for being our guide and protector. Thank you for the night session you've been with us. We pray that in everything that we have learned today, we put it into implementation. And it is in Jesus' name we give thanks and praise. Amen. Thank you, guys. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you. Inanisaidia na nini sahi?
Sasa tuingie hiyo fishboard. Sio nimaliza sote. Sasa ndio nasema kisomeka. Enda kugonga mguuni.